Sullivan will be joining us later, so I'll commence the meeting with the reading of the preamble here. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person as a courtesy via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public and board members, the meeting/hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless required by law. Viewers can visit formerly PAC TV at that local site, localscene.media/Duxbury, to watch video replay of this meeting on Duxbury YouTube. Thank you, and the meeting is now called to order. Tonight's agenda is, the first, we have no announcements. I do not believe we have any minutes. So therefore, we are going to start off by discussing some of the articles on the annual town meeting. And Mary, I think you have the floor.
I do. Bear with me for 1 second. I'm gonna.
All right,
pull
take
up
your
the,
time.
Warrants, so if
We're
anyone
not going anywhere.
is following along. There we go. Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Did everybody get a handout?
Yes, we did.
Sean, did you get it? You did not. There's some handouts right here. Probably, didn't I? Pass them over there? Oh, you're not coming around. Oh, look at you.
Okay.
Got your gymnastics.
Need to use these.
Okay, so, what I tried to do is, provide you with a checklist, and highlighted, some of the articles that still have not been discussed here in, a chart that I emailed out to you guys yesterday. And I gave you a copy, so the gray shaded items on page 2 of your handout are the ones that we're gonna talk about. So we'll start with article number 10, which is the Duxbury beach lease. So I will let you know that the beach lease, the dollar amount is $1 million. It is the same as the current fiscal year, so FY 25 was $1 million, FY 26 will also be $1 million. This article was discussed last night at the select board meeting. I don't know if any of you followed along with the select board meeting, but there was some conversation between the select board and DBR. And ultimately, there were no changes to the lease, nor to the price, and the select board voted unanimously to support Article 10.
Any questions?
I didn't tune in last night, but was there a conversation around that $1 million price being elevated?
No, there was a request to have it reduced, and that request was rejected by DBR.
Do you know if there's ever been any dialogue around profit sharing? Looking at what we get for revenue and having a formula so we can each share in the success of the program and when it's not so successful?
There have been many conversations during negotiations about potential opportunities, and none of those have made it into the actual lease agreement.
I think that it's tough, Brian, through the years, it's really two different objectives, goals and objectives, right? The town being recreation and a funding source, right? And the DBR being an environmental body that's protecting, you know, their mission is to protect the town and that is done by the beaches and atoll, essentially, right? And a lot of times that is that, now I don't want to say directly opposes each other, but we have just other interests that don't ever seem to meet.
And the other thing, I know it's a pretty big price tag for the cost of this lease, and there's a lot of consternation around it with respect to access. And at our last meeting, you also heard from the Director of Recreation, Steve Studley, who talked about the increased level of staffing that's necessary in order for us to provide access to the beach in concert with DBR. And it's becoming, more and more costly for us in order to try to do whatever we can to gain access to this, this amenity here in town. The fact of the matter is that this amenity is what drives people to Duxbury, and it is, your most prized possession. And it is undoubtedly the biggest factor in your home values and the desirability of this community. There are many other great assets in this community, the school system and you know, what have you. But when people outside of the community think of Duxbury, they think of the beach, right? And there are lots of people who come to this area in order to participate in the use of that property. And without it, so you have to remember, it's privately owned
Right.
and we lease it. So if we don't lease it,
Somebody else will.
either somebody else will, or DVR won't open it for public access.
Right.
And the financial ramifications of that with respect to your property values would be significant.
No use debating it. I think the
We have to
Selectmen
invest in each other.
negotiate the lease.
But I do want to draw your attention, and this is, you know, going to be conversations that are going to probably be more challenging as the years go on. Is that the 5-year forecast? The amount that is forecasted for the lease is to hold the amount steady at $1 million for the next several years. And if that does not hold as an assumption in our forecast, then that will adversely impact us financially. So I think we do need to get creative in order to identify ways to contain that cost. You know, profit sharing of some sort, or decreasing our expenses in some way to offset any increases are certainly things that we need to talk about.
So what, you remember roughly what the beach operations budget was for this year? It's up to over 300,000, right?
Oh, yeah, and it doesn't. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff in there that isn't even in the budget, like how often does the highway department have to go down there?
Yeah.
Right, the fire and police.
There are adjacent costs to that are not included in that budget.
So it's 343,000.
I would like to take, I don't, this time of year isn't appropriate because there's too much else going on. But I would like to take in a quieter time of year. After March or sometime and really let's take a look at this. Not that we can. I know we can't do much about it, but to know more, to feel better when we vote. What we vote. To me, the $1 million is preservation of the breakwater.
Yes.
That's what it is to me.
The barrier beach,
The barrier beach,
right?
you know.
I agree.
But I think it would behoove us to look at the operational side of it. And see if we can think of something, like, I've always. Been an advocate of higher rates for the stickers. But I get objections whenever I hear that, you know, or whenever I voice that. But I think when we look at the true cost. Of the beach operation and. How much time we actually spend there and stuff, it warrants. A higher cost to go to the beach recreations. I don't wanna keep jacking the prices, but. I think there's a value there, and the dollar value has changed so much. In such a short period of time, that. $190 for a beach sticker for a year,
It's nothing.
when I can't take my family out to dinner. For $400, to me, something's skewed. And that, again, we've got things to do, and I wanna continue to do them tonight, vote, stuff like that, I'm certainly gonna vote for the beach. But I think it deserves some attention after, you know, when we don't have a deadline. Thank you.
Well, you're absolutely right, but it'd be nice to have an open dialogue about it. But we can talk to ourselves and we talk to the reservation and the answer is always, that's the number.
But, well, no, and you're talking about the beach lease.
All right.
And I'm saying, we're not talking about the beach lease is environmental. The operational side of it is what people pay to go to the beach. And what we pay to make the beach go, if you.
Well, it'd be nice to think our $1 million all went into protection of the beach, but they've got a pretty large overhead.
No, I know.
So we're paying for that too.
That's what the beach reservation is all about, it's preservation of that beach. Not recreation. So, it's a different mission and
Well, anyway, I would like to move the Duxbury.
Any other questions from anybody?
second,
From the,
We have a motion and it's been seconded. For article number 10, the amount of $1 million, all in favor? We're all here, so I don't think we need a roll call, right?
I,
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Unanimous, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
I got
7 to 9. I think that brings us up to article 11.
So Article 11 is going to be IP. This article is, are you guys familiar with the PEG access
Yeah.
fund?
Yes.
Process, yeah, okay. So at our last town meeting, we appropriated $120,000 to the school department for improvements to their technology with respect to educational access. What's the name of their the program over there? There's a name for it, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, the Dragon TV, is that what it's called? Yeah, okay. So there, we had appropriated $120,000 last year. We're going to pass over appropriating additional funding for this year. And one of the things that we are looking at is to determine, because the funding can be used both on the town side and the school side, because we both broadcast
Right.
in various respects. And we run into, what I've noticed is, depending on which meeting rooms we're in, we run into technological challenges with having, a high quality broadcasts. So what I'm looking to do is hold on to the funding for this year so that we can look at our meeting spaces and see what on the town side we may need to do to incorporate some improvements. So until we've had an opportunity to do that assessment, we're gonna IP this article.
So there's money that the town generates from the cable company that we are just not spending this year.
So what happens is the town receives 5% from both Verizon and Comcast of the gross receipts that Verizon and Comcast generate from their customers here in the town of Duxbury. So they send us their financial reports, as well as a check for the 5% of their gross receipts. We then pay over 3% of those gross receipts over to PAC TV or the local scene to support their budget and provide that programming. The remaining funding stays with the town to be used for our own infrastructure. So annually, we do generate some revenue through the course of people subscribing to Verizon and Comcast. However, with streaming media, those revenue sources are declining.
Yeah.
So people are not using cable the way that they
I
did
thought-
10 years ago.
I was under the impression that it was only 5% of the internet portion.
Of what they generate here.
Yeah, so it has nothing to do with, what would have to do with streaming that as far as the other streaming, but what would they have to do with, if someone has HBO or anything
So
like that, I mean, that's not.
the popularity
Yeah.
of those products is declining because the market is saturated with so many other
Yeah,
alternatives.
but if I pay $300 a month to Comcast, and $50 of that is allocated to the my internet connection. That's the only thing that they pay us on, right? Or do they pay us 5% of my $300?
I'd have to double check that, Chuck.
I'm not sure I know that answer.
I thought we went through this just recently.
is that the ground,
I have the Comcast, the bill is unbundled. So. I think when you double check this, Mary, you're gonna find out it's a percentage of the internet connection.
Yeah.
Because there's a variable price on the package that you get. For example, if it's a basic service, et cetera, so that really has nothing to do with the internet connection. The internet connection is affected by what you pay, but. Usually, this kind of a fee that's paid is based on internet connection, not other services.
So maybe people are disconnecting because they can't stream.
that's very.
Well, they would
It is
use-
Hold on.
Yeah.
It's not the answer. You're right, yeah.
The streaming
It should be
file
flat.
with
franchise.
with an internet connection.
Franchise fee revenue, Mary said.
It's for, what's that?
franchise fee
Revenue.
revenue. Looking it up right. She's Googling it right now.
This conversation. Maybe it was last year.
Not in this depth, I don't remember,
Okay.
but maybe we did. Maybe I was absent that day.
I don't, well,
We're gonna get here.
So we're IPing
So we're
IPing the article.
correct.
I'm surprised it's actually
Okay.
decreasing.
I move that we indefinitely postpone Article 11, educational cable and access technology.
Second.
Any further questions?
Okay, Ted just joined, just so you know.
Yeah. I apologize. I was late.
Better late than never, Ted.
Bingo.
We gotta roll call it.
We're now going to roll call because you're on the internet. Are you aware of Article 11 we just discussed?
Yes, I am.
All right, where it's being IP'd and it's been moved and seconded to indefinitely postpone. If you would start the roll call, Ted,
I,
Chuck, I.
J.I.
Brenda,
Ally,
Sean, I.
Kathleen, I.
it's unanimous 8-0-0.
And the franchise fee is a yearly payment that's made by the cable providers, Verizon and Comcast, to us for the right to use public property for cable lines.
Okay, so it's everything.
And that franchise fee is passed on to the consumer as an item on your bill.
Since that's
So,
confusing
okay.
then, because if. I would assume most people's cable bills are increasing, mine is for sure. You know, every month, it's.
But people are leaving the cable.
Yeah.
You're either going to Tubi, you're either going to, you know, another internet service, right, that you're not connected to the set box.
I'm not surprised to be that one, so.
Okay, Article 12.
just a point of information. The actual payment is set in a franchise fee, which is maintained and supervised by the Massachusetts Department of Telecommunications and Cable. So that's where the agreement lies.
All right, Article 12, let me go down to that for folks who
Thank
are
you.
following along.
Now,
All right,
it's a
so in this-
taxation aid committee.
In this environment that we're in, where we're looking at our budgetary challenges and also trying to be sensitive to the need to make sure that there's some sort of tax relief available for folks who are eligible and are in need. I am proposing, I asked Rainey to put this on the warrant, to accept a provision of Mass General Law, Chapter 60, Section 3D, that allows a community to establish a taxation aid committee, as well as to add a voluntary contribution on your tax bill for the funding to go into a tax aid relief fund. So this would establish a tax aid relief fund and also give us the ability to create a committee. There are requirements regarding the constitution of the committee and the appointees, I should say, of the committee. But the idea is that if adopted, because this requires local adoption through town meeting, if adopted, it would allow us to put a checkbox on your tax bill that says, I would like to make a voluntary contribution to the tax aid relief fund. And then folks would either mail us directly a contribution that would go into that fund, or at the time they're paying their taxes, they could insert a separate check that would be processed and go into that tax aid relief fund. What it would require is that the committee be established and the committee define the guidelines for the program. So the eligibility requirements, the relief limits that may be available. So all of that would need to be built. Of course, there are other communities who have already established that, so we would look at what has been promulgated in other communities for guidance. However, the town would be free to develop their own requirements and regulations. And this would be a method of relief that is not raised necessarily through any kind of an appropriation, it's a voluntary contribution.
So it's voluntary, not involuntary.
It is voluntary.
It's like the dollar for state elections on your tax bill.
Correct.
Your period of
I
time.
mean, in theory, that makes kind of sense to me. I think I want to know a little bit more about what the committee is comprised of, what,
It says it right there. So the committee needs to consist of the chairman of the Board of Assessors, the town treasurer, and then 3 residents appointed by the select board.
And Mary, this is to address the issue of those who are potentially fixed income town members who are not eligible for relief, whether it be age or.
Or veteran status or any of the other statutory, exactly, and it would be, so that's the philosophical intent of this. And, but it would be up to the committee to define those requirements.
and maybe it's just my frame of mind. But I know it's involuntary. But does the committee have the oversight to make it not voluntary?
No, no. It's voluntary.
And what other towns have adopted this, Mary?
I don't have a list in front of me.
What's the financial cost to the town to do this?
So thank you for asking. The financial cost to the town would be, we need to modify our bill printing, the form that our bills are printed on. So we would have to work with our third-party printer to make that modification. But the real cost is that for folks, the real cost is manpower in the treasurer's office to process payments. Because for folks who pay their tax bill and they use the enclosed envelope and it goes to our lockbox processor, so that those get processed automatically and does not require human intervention utilizing technology. When your tax bill amount due does not match the amount of your check, it gets rejected from our lockbox and it gets delivered to our treasurer's office who has to hand process it. So if your tax bill is $1,000 and you choose to voluntarily add an additional $5 on your payment, that tax bill and that payment no longer match. They will get rejected by lockbox and then it gets sent into our treasurer's office to be hand processed.
Couldn't that possibly be modified by some software that would essentially say that if you have an amount that exceeds the bill, that it defaults into the bucket for that purpose?
Not when those payments are being processed via lockbox. So lockbox is a third-party processor through our bank. They use optical scanning equipment to open up the envelopes and separate the bill stub from the check. And they use optical equipment to match the amount of the check to the amount due on our scan lines. And when those amounts don't match, they get rejected.
So thank you for that. That's very helpful. Is it a possibility that if enough municipalities in Massachusetts adopt this, that those financial institutions that are providing lockbox services may modify their software to handle this?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
because so they're subject to all sorts of banking
Right.
regulations, right?
So-
However, think of the case where, and this happens more than you would care to admit. Folks will send us a real estate bill with a check, and that check includes the payment with only one stub, with the sometimes no stub. And that includes the payment of their water bill and their real estate bill, and it gets rejected.
see
So we
that.
then have to hand process it.
Okay.
So the bank would have no way of knowing that overage that you're talking about.
Yeah, they're just looking at the scan.
And it's not people, it's technology. So it's a 100% accuracy match. Anything that does not match 100% gets rejected and returned back to our office.
How will it be determined who, who qualifies for that? To draw money from it? It
So
says
that's-
elderly and disabled people of low income.
So that's up to the committee to draft their regulations.
This is an attempt to try to address the issues that come up about the override, where there are people in town with fixed incomes that are elderly that can't really keep up with the pace, the people that are still employed, that are working and getting raises and bonuses and stuff like that. I don't know whether it's, I don't know whether it's worth the effort considering the amount we'll get in return, the cost of processing. But it is an attempt to try to mitigate the increased taxes on those people can we support it. I think it's worth a try.
Mary, to follow up, is there any discussion at the MMA about how to handle this? Is there any talk about this at all?
No,
Okay. Is this just brand new?
no, this has been around for a long time
And
in this
how
community.
did it get on the warrant?
Because I asked for it.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Well, that makes my vote a little.
I am attuned to the conversations that are happening here in the community, and I'm looking for opportunities to address those concerns.
So you're satisfied that the amount of money that the town would have to spend for this would be worth the offset for the,
You don't know. We have no idea how philanthropic the folks in this community will be with respect to their contributions. But we are willing to undertake the effort, in order to determine that.
And once you review it after a year or two, and it's not working, can you suspend it?
You can repeal it.
Once it's institutionalized, friend, I mean, if it indeed gets passed at the town, right, at town meeting, you know, it's there, it's a thing.
But it doesn't have to be a thing forever. if
It
it's not
doesn't have to
working,
be a thing
yeah.
forever, it
Right.
becomes too cost prohibitive or unwieldy. Or it's going to require additional staffing in that office, then we would reconsider, we would reevaluate whether we want to repeal our acceptance of this statute.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the spirit of it. I do. Don't know that this solves the problem, right? Of being able to keep, keep people that are burdened by overburdened taxes, right? I don't know.
I certainly wouldn't want to serve on that committee.
I don't know that I wanna
Don't
vote
volunteer.
Yeah.
vote on this tonight, Brian. I wanna think about this a little bit.
It's certainly a possibility. I don't know.
I think we can vote. I mean, that to me is, it's something we're gonna try. So I can't.
That's right.
I can't imagine it costing the town a lot of money.
Well, I personally think it's a very, very thoughtful response to a real dialogue that's happening right now and right here. So I applaud Mary for putting it on there. I see a myriad number of concerns, as Kathleen points out. We don't know if it's gonna work, et cetera, et cetera. But damn it, I think it's worth a shot. Because as Fred said 5 minutes ago, there are a lot of folks here at the bottom of the scale and they don't get anything other than at the most, the cost of living increase on the social security pension, which I think this year is 2.3%. So the fact that the town is willing to consider that, and I'm pretty conservative about this type of stuff, I think is a very good signal. The implementation is gonna be, tough, without a doubt.
Yes, Jay.
I move the finance committee.
Excuse me, excuse me,
Hold on.
Sorry.
I'm not ready to vote on it.
Just thinking through how the cadence of articles at town meeting will go. We will vote on a operating and contingency budget prior to bringing this up for consideration, correct?
Correct.
I feel like the effort around creating this committee directly impacts how folks anticipate those who are on fixed incomes and are not eligible for those tax relief programs that already exist to get an opportunity, or at least envision or imagine getting relief with an override tax. So part of me is wondering. I feel like it's strategic in being able to encourage a community to feel more comfortable if they were feeling uncomfortable about it. But it shows up after we vote on a contingency budget, so is there any promotion of what this could look like prior to town meeting?
So to that point, I will let you know that, and this is sort of a segue, that I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of. The town, will be hosting some public information forums regarding the override. The first one will be on Wednesday, February 12th at 6:30 in the presentation hall. And then also on February 26th at the presentation hall. And part of the presentation itself, the information that is planned to be shared will include conversation regarding this. And we can also make sure that at town meeting, when the budget, Article 5A and 5B are being discussed, that we will refer to this article later in warrant, to make sure that folks are aware.
Yeah, I just think that our taxation, our tax burden is not, again, I accept the spirit in which this has been presented, Mary. But I think that we have deeper issues about being able to provide some form of relief, meaningful relief to our seniors. And it's just, and it's, if this is a vote to put a committee together to take, you know, okay, leave it to the town. I really don't think that it's not the vehicle that's going to alleviate in a significant way the concern we have for,
Well, I think the issue that you're raising is a much bigger issue.
yes, it is.
And it has to do more than just how the older people on fixed incomes or anybody on a smaller, more modest income afford to live in Duxbury. It's a lot bigger than this article, and a lot of my conversations with people around the override and what's going on with this year's annual town meeting budget process is, what are we doing about avoiding this problem coming up again in 2 or 3 years? Are we just gonna keep doing the same things we've done for the last 25 or 30 years that got us to where we are? Or are we gonna do some things differently? That's a big, big question. This article can't address that. And I think there has to be a townwide discussion about, do we want to continue to look like we look as a little rural community with only residential property tax to pay the freight? Or are we willing to start thinking about doing some other things in Duxbury? One, about how we expenses we have, certainly, but we know what that means. It means laying off a lot of people. Or two, are we gonna look at our town as maybe it's time to increase our commercial space?
Right.
But this is something much on a smaller
And I guess
scale.
that's exactly my point.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do this in the meantime. In my opinion.
It's a tool in our tax relief toolkit.
So what we're gonna do here is, we're not voting this for the town. We're putting it on the ballot and we're giving our recommendation, so there's nothing wrong with us putting it on the floor tonight, in front of us now.
Right.
Some of us will vote yes, some of us will vote no, and it will go to town meeting floor, and we'll say the finance committee voted this way.
Fair enough.
You know, I think that there's a lot of people, there are some people in town that are ultra wealthy. That would, I think, would probably be receptive to giving extra money. If I came to do that.
Mhm.
I know during COVID and during other times when things were tough for some people. I was shocked at the amount of people that came forward to offer help for a lot of people, so. I think the town's been very generous as far as helping, especially the elderly in the town. I mean, remember when they built this building, it was, it came out of the woodwork to support this building.
Yeah, don't misunderstand, Chuck, it's not that I'm.
But I'm saying it's gonna give them, it'll give them a chance to do it. You know, if they don't wanna do it, they don't have to.
I move the finance committee approves acceptance of provisions of Mass General Law, chapter 60. 3D to establish a taxation aid committee.
Second,
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? None appearing. We'll start with Ted.
Ted, I.
Chuck eye.
JRI,
Brenda,
ally,
Sean, I.
Kathleen,
no, you could abstain or say no. You don't have
again,
to.
I don't,
If you don't feel good about it,
I don't want the spirit of the article to be lost in the execution perhaps of it. And also I think it's a larger discussion about how we really address taxation and the overburdening of our people on folks on fixed income, seniors, disabled, whatever. That conversation just never seems to happen.
I think you're absolutely right.
Right, and I don't wanna mask. My point is, in spirit, bring it to the floor, right, of town meeting. But I think that the conversation has to go much deeper than a volunteer, of a checkbox on.
Agreed.
on-
I think that's
I
another
think
thing
everyone
too,
agrees on
after, you know,
that. I do.
it's like the beach.
Mary, Article 13.
Oh, okay, are you guys all set?
You
Okay.
voted, we're
I
done.
recorded 800, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So Article 13, if you turn in your handout. I have the text of Article 13, but I'm gonna ask you to flip to the page behind it. Which is a chart that looks like this.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. And bear with me, what I'm gonna do is try to call it up on our screen so that folks following along.
I think we actually see it in free pass last year, then.
Um, hang on.
What's it look like?
The accessories, real estate tax exemption.
This chart, I'm gonna share my screen. So this chart is currently available on our website. Our assessor's office has been working hard to put together information in and hopefully easy to read format for folks to follow along. So when we talk about tax relief, we think we're all familiar with the statutory exemptions that are allowable under the law. So under Chapter 59, which is the chapter of Mass General Law that governs taxation, real estate and personal property taxation. In provisions of that law, there are exemptions that are afforded to folks who meet eligibility criteria. This list that you have in front of you are the available clauses that folks can apply for in order to have an exemption applied to their tax bill. What happened is there was some recent change in the legislation called the HERO Act that passed through our state legislature. And it enhanced the veterans exemptions. So on that chart that you have in front of you, if you look at the bottom section, the grouping of all the clause 22s. Does everybody see that?
Right behind it.
So the clause 22s that are at the lower section.
Right.
All right, so right now, the town has adopted 22A through 22H. The Article 13 is bringing before the voters the ability to accept clause 22I and 22J, which expands the statutory exemptions for veterans. And basically what they are doing, what the law allows is for communities to increase the amount of the exemption as it exists today, and it's done in a couple of different ways. So these exemption amounts that you see in front of you, the $400, the $750, the $1,500, those are amounts that are declared in Mass General Law, and they have been consistent or static for quite some time. So this HERO Act, clause 22I says that if accepted, the town can increase the exemption amount on an annual basis to include a COLA adjustment. And that COLA adjustment is tied to the Consumer Price Index, and it is an amount that is issued annually by the Commissioner of the Department of Revenue. So, for example, if you look at the first one, the $400 exemption, if we accept clause 22I, then what that says is that the assessor's office can increase that $400 by an amount set by the Commissioner of Revenue. And let's, for example, say in the write-up in your pamphlet, it gives you an example. If the CPI increases by 5%, and we adopt this clause, then that $400 exemption becomes $420. And then in the following year, whatever that COLA is would be applied to the $420. So that the amount of the exemptions is no longer static, it is increasing based on the Consumer Price Index. So that's clause 22I. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay, great.
thank you.
Clause 22J says that if accepted, all of those clause amounts that are listed there, the $400, the $750, that the town could adopt a provision to allow those exemptions to increase by 100% or effectively double. And again, if the attempt here, the purpose behind the changes, the HERO Act changes, is to increase these exemptions because they've been static for so long to try to catch up with the tax burden that these veterans may be, seeing in their property tax bill over the last number of decades where these amounts have not been changed. So if we adopt both of them, what that says is that the clause amounts could effectively double and then be adjusted by a COLA provision annually. Okay, so we met with the Board of Assessors as well as our veterans agent to take a look at how much this would cost us, because all exemptions are funded through the overlay account. Does everybody know what the overlay account is, or would you like me to go over it? Okay. So when we put together our budget, there is a line item in every municipality's budget called an overlay account. The overlay account is funded through taxation, but it is not a line item that goes before town meeting for a vote. It is a number that I have to put into the budget to make sure that we have funding to cover the cost of all of the exemptions that we grant, as well as abatements that people may apply for. So when you get your tax bill, there is a certain period of time where when you open your tax bill and you look at the valuation of your property, if you disagree with that, you can apply for an abatement. If your abatement is granted, then the difference between what you were originally billed and the reduced amount that you are granted through the abatement, those dollars have to come from somewhere in order to keep our budget balanced. So they come from the overlay account. And so what this would require is that we would have to increase our overlay account in our budget in order to be able to afford these programs. And the estimated impact, if we adopted both of these provisions, would be approximately $100,000. If all eligible veterans apply for it.
And how many eligible veterans we have now, Mary?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
I know it's declining.
What was the question?
How
How
many
many eligible
eligible
veterans?
veterans we have now?
I don't have.
I
Agents.
don't have the actual amount, but if you take the amount of percentage of people that serve in the United States is what, way less than 10%.
Yeah,
And then you take the Duxbury population, I can't believe that It's not
probably
even
less than
close to
100.
1% of the people
Yeah,
in the town.
probably less than
It's
100.
very small.
Just
Yeah.
Kathleen, to answer your question, I did meet with Sarah.
Okay,
And I recall the discussion, I can't give you the precise number, but it's definitely under 100. And that includes veterans from all eras, and in particular, those from Iraq and
Iraq.
Afghanistan, most, hundreds. And what she had done is, in giving me the number, she had done a mailing and reach out through a variety of meetings, the Legion and other avenues that kind of come up with an estimate. It was certainly under 100.
and Mary, what are they using as a definition of veterans? Is it the basically firearm services or?
Yeah, you have to get a certification from the VA. That,
So it's not the postal workers, nothing against postal workers, but I'm just making sure it's,
It's military.
It's not civil workers.
yeah, right.
Usually to establish veteran status, being a veteran myself, you start off with what's called a Form DD 214, which is your discharge papers from the military. So that's where the ball starts to roll. And I believe that is included in Mass General Law, so there are some definitions in there,
Some protection.
how you establish that.
Thank you.
I do have a chart that I managed to run out of. the
In
office
looking
without-
at the exemptions, I think it's also important to note that you gave an example of $400. And that's for somebody who's 10% disabled or a Purple Heart. Now, the largest exemption is $1,500, and that individual needs to be 100% disabled and living in special adaptive housing. So we're not talking about people that have been marginally affected by their service, but these are
Yeah.
extremely affected by their service to our country. So I think it's something we should seriously consider.
So that actually. Let me just try one last thing, so I can get this. Yeah, all right, let me share my screen.
Are you looking up something there?
I am, I'm gonna show you, you guys asked for counts, so let me just share. This is, the FY 23 MDM one. So like everything we do, we have to file with the state. This is our reimbursement form that we file with the state, for, so some of these exemptions, that people qualify for, we do receive some funding back from the state. This, I will make it clear, this provision here, when it was adopted, clearly articulates that, there is no additional funding forthcoming from the state for these two provisions. However, let me make this bigger and see if you can see this. So these are the numbers of. The 22s here. Okay, so we had 67 veterans who qualified for some form of an exemption A through F. We had the 22 Bs, which are loss of 2 hands, feet, or eyes. We have one. The example that you were talking about, friend, which is a 22C, we do not have any in town. That $1,500 exemption, see that 0? Or I should say, we do not have any who applied for it in FY 23. I'm looking at the FY 23 reimbursement form. So the way you read this form is that this is the $1,000 exemption. We had 24 who qualified. So the town granted $24,000 worth of exemptions, and we received from the state $19,000 and $19,800 in reimbursement funding.
So in these charts, you have an exemption amount for most of them, but then there's 3 or 4 of them that have 100%.
Mhm.
So a surviving spouse of a police officer to line you 100% of all their taxes, is that what that means?
Real estate.
Real estate,
Real estate taxes, right?
correct.
Okay,
And we
In-
do
in the
have,
same,
if you look here, that's a 22D that you're calling out, Chuck. And there are, back in, again, FY 23, there were 7 who qualified for that. You see this row right here.
seven that qualified it. But we got reimbursed for virtually the whole amount
for that. So.
in that category.
Correct. So that portion under the original law, we would still receive the reimbursement. This additional component, we would not.
Yep.
So what would happen is our reimbursement form would then have 22I and 22J, which would be the incremental difference for which we would not receive the state reimbursement.
So do we have any 22 Fs and Hs?
We do not have 22S and Hs, as listed here back in FY 23. I don't know if I have the 24 one, let me see. Oh, I have the 24. No.
And you can probably get.
Oh, and motor vehicle. Motor vehicle, excise tax.
So no, to answer your question.
Okay, just curious. Where do you vote?
Any
So
questions?
I move the finance committee accept, the acceptance of Mass General Law, chapter 59. Paragraph 5, clause 22I and 22J, authorize annual increase for exemption hereby.
Second.
Now, are there any further questions? We have to do roll call votes, starting with Ted,
Yes,
Chuck, I.
JRI.
Brenda,
Aye. Nat, aye.
Sean, I.
Kathleen, I.
Thank you.
800.
And I can assure you at town meeting, we will have a member of the assessor's office present that and be able to speak much more articulately about it.
Well done.
They live in GT.
Brings us to number 15, I believe.
Let me just put it on screen back again. Four folks at home.
Proposed New Malden Local Historic District.
All right, so let me take a stab at that one. Okay, so the proposal here is from the Local Historic District Commission. I did not have time to reach out to somebody to join us, but I did talk with somebody regarding this article in particular, so you may or may not get your questions answered in order to vote it this evening. But it appears to me anyway, that at each town meeting, there is an attempt to preserve and move different properties into the classification of a historic district. In this particular case, the old town hall is the candidate, and that the Historic District Commission would like to designate as being in a historic district. And one of the concerns, or apparently one of the issues that has been that has come up for the last several years is what are the impacts of designating these buildings as being in a historic district? In particular, with this particular article, my initial concern was at our last town meeting, the town authorized or appropriated $50,000 to do some painting on one or two sides of that building. If you remember that, the paint is peeling and pretty bad. And so my concern was, is this going to make it more costly for us to do those repairs on these buildings? And are we going to have to preserve them in some special, or, and when I say special, I mean more expensive manner than we would originally anticipate? And I spoke with Fernando about this, and he's been pretty involved in this process. And the intent behind this is not to make things more difficult or more costly, but is to identify buildings that are historic and special to this community, and to make sure that when they are being maintained or repaired, that they're being maintained and repaired in a manner that preserves the integrity or the look and feel and spirit of the building. But it is not intended to be oppressive in the respect that that this Historic District Commission is going to require us to use certain materials or repair things in a manner that would be much more costly. They are open to us using, traditional materials and supplies in order to perform maintenance on the building. They just don't want to have the integrity of the structure, the look and feel of the building jeopardized in any way.
So in previous discussions, it was always around the exterior of the building and the look of the
Correct.
building. You could do virtually what you needed to do inside to make.
That is still correct.
Who owns the building?
Yeah,
The town of Duxbury, they're right there, owner of record on the deed is the town of
We
Duxbury.
still own that building?
oh, yeah,
Mhm.
oh, yeah.
Where's,
It's across from the pool. I
No,
believe.
no, this is the town hall, we're the
Town
town
hall.
manager.
Oh, you mean the current town hall?
Yes.
I thought you were trying to save the one.
No,
No, no,
the
no,
one
no,
that
no.
we do business in today.
Oh,
It's
Oh,
the,
okay.
it's called the
No,
old town
I-
hall, it's
that's
where
the
the
old town
town
hall.
manager's office is
Oh.
located.
It's the little building between the.
yeah,
church
okay,
and
I
the
got
big
it, all right.
house.
okay.
So, I seem to recall that previous historic districts were privately owned. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yes. So I'm not quite certain that a publicly owned,
Well, I don't know that that's entirely correct, because at our last town meeting, the Wright Building
Right.
was included in a historic district.
was the
And that's,
library done as well?
I don't have the list,
So
there's a
The old,
website.
the old library,
so
right
does,
building.
does this mean we're gonna take the vinyl siding off of the town hall and put clapboards back on?
I'm not saying that.
I'm just.
We don't have vinyl siding.
Being argumentative, are we?
Yeah, I just
We
said.
don't have vinyl siding on that.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't,
We
right
do
now.
not.
The town hall has
Old town
vinyl
hall?
siding.
No, the new town hall has vinyl siding,
The
the
old
old
one does.
town hall is clapboard with paint on it.
So you're
It's
just
never-
talking about,
The little.
Just the old building. Not to be, so the new, there'll be a delineation between the two buildings.
Here, it's
One's in the district and one's not.
Why wouldn't we just maintain it as a
we would
town
anyway,
asset?
we would anyway.
Well, that was the argument last year, because there was a town-owned building, and we're saying, why would the town take anything but good responsibility or stewardship of the property that we own?
The Wright building was the example.
Exactly. That was last year.
I think it forces the town to do it.
So, so there
Right.
is a little, if I may, sorry.
Yes, please.
There is something to consider, which is if a property is deemed historic and it's. You could potentially look at the Community Preservation Fund for restoration of historic properties in the future.
We could do it anyway.
Right, we could do it anyway.
We can do it anyway.
I think that having a town asset under the aegis of the historic. What is the local, it's part of the local historic, doesn't. And then. In essence, have the Duxbury Local Historic District Commission have a say over town property, doesn't make sense to me.
And also, let's take an example that, let's say the old Partridge Academy catches on fire, which is the new town hall, I guess, right?
Right,
And damages the old town hall.
right.
And then we're looking at it, we say, well, why do we wanna build two structures here? When we could combine the structure and come up with a more
Efficient building.
efficient building with better space layouts and.
And septic
not
that
hampered
work
by-
and stuff like that.
And we couldn't do that, or we could do that, but it would take us a longer, much more
I'm
meeting.
not sure how much of a delay it would cause, but there must be some delay.
Yeah,
Well, there's a demolition delay on any building that old as well. We'd have to deal with that.
we're gonna do that with Alden School,
Yeah, there you go.
anyway.
Well, I think this did make it to the floor town meeting last year, the one concerning the right building. And it was approved, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Well, but I think, if I remember correctly, wasn't it part of it, that the people that were speaking on behalf of the town was saying that it's holding the town accountable for what they would like to see in the town?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of setting a good example for,
From a financial perspective, though, it doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't think it makes any difference. One way or another, they certainly are gonna do it anyhow.
My concern is that we're taking a town asset and we're essentially putting it under a different commission and it's why
Preserve it.
we would preserve it
This
anyway,
is the
right?
historic commission that wants to set a real high standard on how we deal with that building going forward. Whether we like it or not, whether you're comfortable with that, I think that's what they're trying to do. Are these the other properties that
Yes,
you're putting up
so-
now?
So for this particular article, what I'm doing, I went to the town website under the local historic district commission. They have a series of reports. The report dated November 2024 is their assessment of this particular building. So you can go ahead and take a peek at that. Located in this report is the list of the existing, let me get over here. So the town has 14 local historic districts, and they are as follows.
Yeah, but those are private, most privately owned.
Well, this is just the district, right? So
Well,
it's
you
the
don't know
list of
what's in
properties
All
within
private
it.
properties in the above local historic districts were,
Okay, and then there's 3 town-owned structures, the Tarpon School, Bluefish River Fire Station, and the Wright Building. So it's not limited to just privately owned.
but Tarpon is like a. And the Bluefish River is the little lofty thing. Right down by the parking lot.
Fire station or something.
Now, the picture on the cover was the picture of the
Old Town Hall.
big town.
Of the new town hall.
Of
Not the little.
new town hall.
Right.
We have the right building?
No, the right building is down.
No. That's not the building in question. It's the one to
It's new town hall.
the left.
Yeah, the one that is in real, and again, I would. JR, to your point, these are old buildings and I get the historic. Merit to them, but it's a town asset. We should be maintaining the town assets. To the,
Pretty sure we had a split vote on this last year with the right building.
probably,
And we're gonna have a split vote again.
I
yes,
think
we
so.
are, so why don't we take the.
So I move the finance committee adapt.
Wait, there's a
Sorry.
question.
Okay,
Question.
Yes, sir.
Like, what did we pay for the study that recommended this?
I think the historic commission paid for it. I don't know.
if there was any study.
If this is their report.
Yeah.
So,
But did we have outside consultants do this?
I do not believe so. But I cannot guarantee
I
that.
don't know.
Whoever Evelyn Walker is, Bill Tuck and Renee,
They're the historic commission members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a-
Everyone Walker was in my class. We graduated.
Hard to hear that.
So, Ted, can we move forward?
Yeah, I'm kind of, I have a question mark as to whether it's of any value to do that. I'm not convinced.
What was your question, Ted? I couldn't quite make it out.
Is there any value to doing this?
Any value to the article?
Yeah. To the historic, to setting up another historic district.
Right.
so I
I
can
don't know the
offer
answer.
this. I'm obviously not well versed in historic districts and the work of this committee. If you want to have, we can arrange to have somebody from the commission participate to answer questions far better than me. but in
Would
the
we
meantime-
want to have more information
Well,
before we
it's
vote?
probably, they've worked
In
hard.
fairness.
It's probably
I'll let the
Right.
people decide.
let them present, but
Are they gonna present at the town meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, but I'm also pointing out the report that is on the town's website, if you can take a peek at that. So it's up to you if you guys want to vote this evening, feel free. If you would like me to find somebody from the committee to join at your next meeting to answer questions, I'd be happy to do so.
Well, at this point, I think it's a similar vote that we had last year, that some of us feel that it's important to preserve these buildings and to give them a designation that makes them significant to the town history. Others feel it's a waste of time. We own it, so we'll take good care of it. And it's the same argument we had last year with the Wright building. I think the vote's gonna be the same. It'll go to town meeting. we'll still have our vote. I think we can vote it and
Yeah, it's gonna go down.
we know what they're gonna say when they come in. It would be the same story regarding preserving our buildings and making sure that they're a monument to the past.
So I move the Finance Committee supports proposed New Alden Local Historic District, the Old Town Hall, Article 15.
Second. Any other questions? Fair to vote, roll call. Ted,
Hey,
what was that?
Yay,
no,
Okay,
Chuck,
Yeah, I know.
friend, aye.
Al, no. Matt, no.
Sean, I.
Kathleen, no.
What was your
Okay,
comment?
3 in favor, 5 opposed? You agree, Mayor? That count?
I wasn't following.
Oh, you
where I-
weren't taking the count.
I was
Three.
not, I was actually looking at the pictures because the pictures are accurate.
Here's the picture. There was 3 in favor and 4 opposed.
And
five.
five.
5 opposed, 5, 3, 5,
I just wanna
3,
go back
5,
to the-
0.
So this is in fact a picture of the old town hall. This is not the new one. Because this has a green shutter door on the front and those 2 windows have shutters on them. The new town hall does not there. The windows are exposed.
So the new one is the little one.
The one I work in is not this building.
It's fully open because of the front door.
It's a drainage door.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is where.
This is the town. hall.
I've never actually in that front door.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's,
should be, well,
all right,
Okay,
moving on.
moving on.
We jump all the way to Article 26. Citizen, is it? No. it's not citizen.
go through resilience.
Climate emergency, declare a climate emergency for the coastal resiliency task force.
I think we should,
So I don't know if you guys vote on these things, but I just listed them here for you in case you wanted to take them up. They're not financial articles, so I have taken no time to review them.
Yeah, we don't, we vote on all of them, but I'd like to hear from the client, the coastal resiliency task force to find out what.
Yes, I would too.
They wanna do.
yeah, me too.
Okay, so you need the coastal resiliency task force.
And I'd also like to hear from planning or
Petition.
somebody on, Checkerberry Hill.
Yep, me too.
Do we know if the planning board, if they met all the specs of the planning board and the planning board has voted in favor of adopting that? That's usually what we take as our guide. If they met all the standards and they said up
So
front,
I
if
think,
you do, you'd be accepted, I mean, we should do it, but I don't know the answer to the question.
Yeah, the
so
building.
I can tell you that, what I heard from the conversation at the select board meeting the other night when this was discussed. Was that the DPW director is not in favor of accepting this street, because.
That's it.
There you go, so that's your answer.
Well,
That doesn't give us,
We
we
should
should
know
know
that.
the planning
Not
board
up to-
too.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what the planning board
The
says.
street itself.
All right, so you need the planning board,
Right.
If be certain kind of width and the berm has to be so and.
okay, for the next one,
That's Mrs. Lambert and request to stop evaporation of Logan nuclear power stations contaminated wastewater.
Mary's at the end again.
I mean, I know I'm gonna vote in favor of it, but I certainly don't know how they're gonna do it.
Well, let's have Mary come in and talk about it.
Okay. Okay,
okay, so just to confirm. So in order for you to take action on those 3 articles, if I understood you correctly, for Article 26, you need somebody from coastal resiliency. 27, you need planning board, and 28, you need who?
Apparently,
Does anybody know?
Somebody from the.
Does anybody know how to
advisory
contact her and can line her up for your next meeting? I don't know who that is.
that's Pixie, right?
Hmm?
Yeah, that's Pixie, right?
that is.
That's Pixie, that's real,
Yeah.
Yeah,
real name.
yeah.
Okay, can somebody reach out to her? I don't know who she is. I don't have any contact info.
I'll reach out to her.
All right, and so what meeting would you like to
It
have?
could be anybody from that.
Right. I'm
It's
assuming she's
it's
the
usually
chair.
is the spokesperson for all things.
Okay, Fred, what night would you like to have those discussed?
Whoa, it's a good question. I look at the next meeting. A lot of these, are yours, Barry. The regional dispatch, do we expect, much of a conversation there?
So I actually have to confirm with him to make sure that he's available to participate. He's been out sick, battling the flu. And he left me a message today and I will talk with him tomorrow.
Where does
he's
his
gonna do
budget
the
stand
same.
in the scheme of things in terms of Article 5B? Is he part of the 5B?
No. He's not funded through general fund appropriations.
Enterprise.
Let me look, hold on.
It's not on here.
Regional Rock, right, his budget was 600 and that's what it was, and.
No.
So I don't know that we really need him to come in, because we know it's, the number is. What was our share of the cost of running the rock? And it's the same as it is both A and B budgets,
That is correct. That is our assessment.
and they did a presentation earlier in the year to us, right?
Yeah,
So I don't think we need to have him come in, so I think that could go move rather quickly. Retirement of debt, I'm assuming that's what we owe. We don't have a lot of debate about that, do we?
Mhm.
Either pay the bill or get foreclosed. Contributory pensions,
An assessment, the same thing.
employee benefits,
Discuss, a small discussion regarding health insurance.
property and liability insurance. Not much discussion. Reserve fund, it's what we get.
I think you guys already did the reserve fund.
I thought we did too.
I thought we did too.
What?
The green reinstated the.
And then HR,
So that is, so all of those items that you're talking about are for Thursday night, which is your joint meeting with the select board.
right,
Correct.
so I'm trying to figure out. I
So
think we
would you
should
like-
probably have those 3 articles back for the following Tuesday.
Or, so the select board has not heard anything regarding those 3 articles, so perhaps. I mean, it's kind of late in the game, but if anybody's available to join, maybe we take those up on Thursday night.
What,
And we could actually vote on Thursday night, so
what are we voting Thursday night? The
We're gonna
So those
vote.
articles, there's 3 articles that we're asking people to come in on.
They can zoom in.
Article 4, Mary,
No, let's just focus. We're talking 26, 27, 28.
Right. We could, I'm okay bringing him in on the 26th. I just worried about there not being enough time. With these other things we need to discuss to keep these people waiting for 2 hours and then say we're adjourning and we don't have time to go on. And have them hanging there waiting unnecessarily. But for the looks of it. They're all pretty straightforward to get to HR. Now, how much, she hasn't presented yet to the select board joint meeting. So I imagine that'll be a
Right.
fairly lengthy presentation and question and answer.
That her, if you look at her 5B impact, that department, I shouldn't say her, that department, the 5B impact is pretty negligible.
yeah.
but that's just HR, that's not our.
So why can't we,
Yeah,
even though the,
So Article 4 won't be discussed.
No.
Okay,
it's just
So-
Jeannie's budget.
that list,
so on the rest of them that we're gonna do on Thursday night. Even though the selectmen. Have convened, there's no reason we can't vote them at this.
I agree
we do.
completely. We are in session,
Just vote them
We
on
can
the floor
vote.
and get it done.
We don't really vote before the select board anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and if the selectmen would wanna vote them the same time, that's
They're probably.
fine too. But basically,
that's it.
yeah,
Okay, then I'm gonna reach out to, so will you reach out to
I'll
Mary
reach out to
Lickford
Mary.
and see if she can join us on Thursday? And I will try to find somebody from the other 2 committees to join us on Thursday. And we will try to address those 3 issues.
But before,
so who's in charge of planning, or who's the committee chair? Yeah. You don't have to
Remember,
know
I'm the
everything.
finance director.
You gotta stick to
I
it.
do not do planning.
I'm just facilitating the meeting.
I try, JR.
Harry, is there anything else on tonight's
So,
agenda you'd like to discuss?
yep, so I just wanted to talk about one thing, with you guys, and I'm gonna call up the town's website, just so that folks who are following along Bear with me for one moment. So, if any of you participated in the select board meeting on January 27th, which was a Monday evening, where we had our consultant from Raftellus present the initial review of and discussion of our water and sewer rates. So we have engaged a third-party consultant to assist with a long overdue review of our water and sewer rates. And as part of that conversation, and I don't want to talk about necessarily the water sewer rates here this evening, but during the course of that conversation, I had stated that the cost of the DPW facility is to be allocated and shared between the general fund and the water enterprise fund. And that the water enterprise fund is going to cover 22% of the cost of the DPW facility. And the general fund is to cover 78% of the cost of the DPW facility. Since that meeting, there has been a public records request submitted, and there has also been some chatter out amongst the community about where that came from and whether that's a valid statement or not. So I just wanted to go over it with this committee and any folks who may be following along. When I first arrived here, I had sat down with the previous finance director to talk about a number of things and have some sort of a transition. And one of the things we talked about was the DPW facility, and he had informed me that that allocation was in place. And that was the assumption that I have been operating under. However, there has been a records request asking for information to substantiate that. So I just want to call your attention to a page that I created on the finance department's website. So if you go to the town's website and you go under departments and you go to finance, you will find our landing page, and I added a link here called projects. And the documentation that we used for the water sewer rate study is out here, as well as some documentation regarding the DPW facility. And back on January 10th of 2022, there was a presentation from Weston and Sampson, the town's engineers for the DPW facility. And as part of their presentation, they had confirmed on, let me get down here too. No. On the right one. They had confirmed the allocation split. And it's right there. Okay. Bear with me for 1 second. I should have written down the slide number. Okay, so here's the enterprise, the water enterprise and the general fund breakdown. 21.8% is attributable to the water enterprise fund, and 78.2% is attributable to the general fund. That, if you listen to the recording of that select board meeting at which time this was presented, it was reaffirmed during that meeting back in 2022 that this allocation would be in place for the cost of the DPW facility. And the engineering firm also reaffirmed that this conversation actually started in the community in 2018 with the feasibility study. And so when the feasibility study was conducted and the town engaged the engineering firm to do the analysis, they looked at the overall size of the building, as well as how it was going to be utilized and which departments were going to occupy which share of space and equipment and what have you out of the DPW facility. And from that analysis, the engineers recommended this allocation of a 78-22 split between the two funds. So this is a conversation that's been going on for well over 6 years. And is not anything new and has been reaffirmed several times. So I just wanted to share with this committee.
Not invented by you, apparently.
I'm sorry,
Not invented by
was
you.
not invented by me. I am upholding what I have inherited and I'm just simply.
So what the
reminding
engineers are
folks.
basically saying that that entire facility is the water department actually uses 22% of it.
That is
It's
correct.
accountable for space, equipment, everything.
Exact, equipment, storing of their vehicles, the vehicle maintenance who works on their equipment.
Sure.
Absolutely. So, of the entire operation, 22% of it effectively would be attributable to, the water enterprise. So, when we had conversations about the rates the other night, I had indicated clearly that the rates need to be structured such that they would cover not only the cost of ongoing operation and maintenance, but also debt service attributable to the water enterprise, not the least of which is to include their share of the DPW facility. So, for those folks who are debating it, out in the community, I just wanted to confirm for
Well, there's
everybody.
obviously been a long history of getting to that point where we are.
Right.
Okay,
Okay,
I remember being at the meeting and I remember vaguely this coming up and not thinking much of it, but it seemed logical to me at the time.
Yes, that's very much.
Other than that, I don't remember there was a lot of debate about it. Okay, thank you for sharing that.
my pleasure.
Now, are there any other, I don't think we have anything else we can do tonight.
That's all for me.
Oh, Mary still got 7 minutes to call her dad before you come.
I will draw your attention, actually, sorry, to one more thing in your handout. The last page of your handout, I did share with you. And I don't remember if I handed it out at the last meeting, I may have. But I just wanted to share with you, a couple of things. The section at the top, so it's the chart that looks like this. It is a draft, so I will confirm for you that our free cash and retained earnings are still not yet certified from the Department of Revenue. We checked in with them again today. We are fourth on the list with our DOR rep, so we're waiting patiently for that to be completed. However, my estimate of free cash is shown at the top of this sheet, and the first part of the smaller chart at the top of the page indicates my earmarks for articles that I anticipate will be on the special town meeting warrant, which are our traditional earmark allocations of transferring free cash to things like OPEB, the stabilization fund, the matching grant account, and we do need to replenish some funding in our compensated absences account. So, when the special town meeting warrant is prepared, those numbers will be the numbers that we will be using for voting those particular articles. Below that is Article 6 and Article 7, which you guys have already taken up. And then at the bottom, you'll see my calculation for the estimate of remaining free cash, if it does in fact get certified at the amount that I'm estimating at the top of the chart. Are there any, are there any questions on that?
So the remaining free cash is way down at the bottom of the second page,
Correct,
or actually at the top of the second page, right? 292,490.
correct.
That's after town meeting.
That would be after town meeting, assuming that it's certified at that level that is estimated at the top.
Is your conservative estimate conservative, or is it liberal, or
No,
is it?
it's
spot on?
It's pretty close to what I'm hoping it comes in at.
All right. We can't expect any kind of lucky win.
No.
Bulge in that.
No.
All right.
It doesn't fall from the sky.
All that is. Motion to adjourn,
Second.
all in favor?
Deadeye,
We're
Deadeye.
adjourned. Yeah. Friend. Al,
Sean,
Kathleen, I.
we're there. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.